You might be referencing a lot, but if you are making these mistakes, then you are still losing marks. In this video, I'm going to expose the top Harvard referencing mistakes that many students make and how to fix them before submission date. My name is Lerato Kanomsa, your academic best friend from All Things Academia, where we explore and explain all things in the academic world. I have helped hundreds of students with their Harvard referencing, and I have seen it all. From in-text citations that do not match their reference list, to missing full stop and copied and pasted citations with broken formatting. It is not because these students were lazy, but it's because no one actually teaches us how to reference properly. So as your academic best friend, I took it upon myself to do just that. The first mistake that students make is to have a citation in text and you don't find it anywhere in the reference list. You have cited Dlamini 2022, but there is nowhere in the reference list where you give the title of Dlamini's source and the publisher and the place of publication and so forth. So then it is left to the reader to wonder if this Dlamini actually exists because they cannot be traced. You know what I mean? Or vice versa, you find that there is a Dlamini in the reference list 2022, but there is nowhere in text where you've mentioned this Dlamini. So what have they actually said, or how have they actually contributed to your assignment that makes them deserving to be part of your reference list in the first place? Like, come on. If you're going to put a citation in text, it needs to be followed by a reference entry in the reference list. If you have an entry in the reference list, it needs to be in text in your body of work, because you cannot put in your reference list someone you have not cited, and you cannot cite someone and don't give us the details of that source in the reference list. These two goes together hand in hand, so you cannot have the one without the other. Actually, I think this is what makes the difference between a reference list and a bibliography. A reference list is a list of all the citations that you have cited in your text with a little bit of more information. Now, a bibliography is where you can add sources in the bibliography and you have not directly referenced them in text. A lot of other sources have shaped your ideas and how you thought about the topic without directly referencing them. In the matter of assignments and essays and research papers, what we're actually looking for is a reference list and not a bibliography. Bibliography normally work for proposals, when you say something and cite people, but also you've read more sources to come up with those ideas, so you add them in the bibliography. So what we're doing here is using a reference list, meaning it's a list of all the sources that we have cited, all right? So do not make that mistake. The second mistake that students make is missing key information either in their citations or in their reference list. Lovelies, I must say this and I must say this again and again. If the source is missing a date, you cannot just ignore the fact that it's missing a date and not put anything. You need to put ND, no date, in the place of the date. If the source is missing a name of the author, you cannot just put a date without a name. You need to put the organization's name in which that source was published under, and don't just leave an empty space and leave it for the reader to figure it out. If the source is missing more than one key element, for example, the source does not have a date, it does not have the author, and parallelly doesn't mention the publisher, then do not use that source, because that is not a credible source. If no one wants to take credit for that body of work or come forth and say, I am responsible for this piece, then why should you trust it for your research? Do not use sources that are missing key elements, especially if it's more than one key element missing. The third mistake that you want to look out for is wrong punctuation and formatting. Small things like missing a full stop, like having the comma at the wrong place, like italicizing the wrong element can make you lose marks. These punctuations are very important because they communicate what element follows what element and which element is which. I have seen too many reference lists that have very sloppy referencing, especially when it comes to punctuations. So a reference list that is written like this, it is very wrong. The right example is to have the comma after the author's name, which is Khumalo in this case, Having a period or a full stop after the initial of that author, which is N in this case, and putting the date in the brackets, because that's what communicates to the reader that this is the date of the publication. Then you need to put the academic writing, which is the title of the source, in italics, okay, since this is the book. Then you need to put Johannesburg, the whole name of the city as it appears on the book, and don't give it a slang like Joburg in this case. You also need to put the colon between the place of publication and the publisher. You finish up with a full stop or a period at the end of that reference list. This punctuation, as small as it looks, it is very important to communicate to the reader what elements are in that reference. Now, the fourth mistake that the students make, and this is the mistake that I have made myself, I shared this when I was doing my master's, and this is over-reliance on referencing tools. So you've got this referencing manager like EndNotes, which is my personal favorite, and SiteWrite and so forth, Mendeley. They exist to help you reference easily, and they sort of like automate the whole process. However, they do get things wrong because sometimes you download these references from a website and they are written wrong. I once downloaded from an EndNote format a reference that was written in all caps, from the author's name to the publisher to the title. And when I entered it into my own notes, it did not correct them. It's a software, it's not supposed to. It just entered it as it is, taking each element and putting it in the place where it needs to be. But when my examiner read my reference list, because they do read it, they saw that and they were like, what is going on here? Had I cross-checked and corrected that mistake, I would have not lose those marks. So this is why it's important to know the basics and follow this series so that you understand how things are supposed to be, so that even when you are using these softwares, you are able to correct it when they don't put the things in the right place, because they can really mess things up. It's small things like that that you need to watch out for. So if you are going to use a software or a referencing manager, in this case, you need to go cross-check and double-check what it has spit out. Don't just copy and paste. The second thing that I've seen in this point is that people will copy from the article or from Google Scholar the reference list that is given there, or from the article itself, because when you read an article, there's a section that says cite this article this way, and then you just copy and paste it into your reference list, not thinking about, is this the Harvard reference style or is it another style of referencing? Is it formatted the right way or not? And then you end up having these things that we talked about before, which is inconsistencies in your referencing, where the commas are in the wrong place in other sources and they are in the right place in some. We've italicized certain things in other sources and they're not in italics in other sources. So you just need to make sure of all of that. So you need to understand how the structure is supposed to be so that you can correct these things if you have copied and pasted or if you have used a referencing manager. Now, the fifth mistake that students make is using the wrong source type for the wrong source. Okay, so for example, they will use the blog page or the website structure for an online article, which is a journal article. You need to know the source type you are referencing and use the right structure and the right format for that source type. So when you get a source, you need to check first, is this an online document? Is this an online journal article? Is this a blog post? Or is this just a simple online downloadable PDF file? And you need to cite it and reference it accordingly. Now, the last mistake, which is the bonus mistake that students make, is not including the DOI number or the URL of that source. So here there's a couple of elements that I can mention when it comes to online sources. If it is a journal article from an online database, you need to include the DOI number, because this is the footprint, a digital footprint that directs the reader exactly to where the document is. And if you do not have the DOI, then you use the URL. And when you use the URL, don't make the mistake of leaving out the two things that always accompanies the URL. And that is the before the URL, you need to add available at and the colon, and then the URL. And after the URL, you need to put in brackets access. So you give the date that you access that particular document or URL. And that's the date, including the day, the month, and the year. Not just the year, but the day, the month, and the year, to show the reader that at this time, that URL was active and live, in case by the time they click on it, it has been taken down, or it's broken, or someone did not pay their domain name or internet space. This protects you so that this does not become your problem. So those are the 6 mistakes that are commonly made throughout academia by students, especially, that you should avoid doing. And if you liked this video, then give it a like by clicking the thumbs up button, and also be sure to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so that you are notified every time I upload helpful content such as this one. So go ahead now and tune into our next series, which talks about writing a literature review. And you can do that by clicking either the video that is appearing on your screen right now and following it directly from your description down below, where you can also find your free Harvard referencing starter pack that you can download and use for your assignments, for your research papers, because it covers everything that we have covered in this series. So just go ahead and do just that as I project to you love and grace in the way of 2 Corinthians 13, verse 14.